This one, I think, has the most, if you want to say, credibility to behind it. Has the most praise behind it. And I think it's the most popular. But even still, if you hadn't had a chance to watch it, this is almost the go-to movie for any rugby person to recommend, and it is Invictus. Invictus is a movie that was released in 2009. It was directed by Clint Eastwood, and it follows the story of Francois Pignard, played by Matt Damon, and Nelson Mandela, played by Morgan Freeman, of course. And it follows the story of a post-apartheid South Africa leading into the 1995 Rugby World Cup, where South Africa, the Springboks, were not expected to win this, and there was so much political and racial turmoil going on in South Africa, particularly after the African Freedom Union, the AFU, had taken over in the government, where Nelson Mandela was elected as president overwhelmingly in one of the first fully democratic elections in South Africa. This movie, I mean, it is a topper of a movie. It is an emotional movie. It is a great period piece, even though this is the mid 90s. But, we're talking about 20, 25 years ago. It speaks on what the impact and significance of Nelson Mandela's dream to create the Rainbow Nation and to be able to create a nation that works in unison with each other despite its racial disparities that exist, and being able to surround it around the development of and preparation for the 1995 Rugby World Cup. I mean, it's a great backdrop. Like, it's classic sports movie. We're right up there with Glory, in my opinion, right up there with Rudy. Like, this is one of the great ones. I mean, Coach Carter, it's that. You know that the good guys end up winning and yada yada. But I think this one, what really stands out, outside of, its basic story, is just the acting. The acting was incredible. Matt Damon did a great job in trying to master that South African, that Afrikaan accent, and being able to portray the feeling of the moment. Clint Eastwood, as per usual, able to get a feel for the environment. And if you watch any of Clint's movies, like, say what you want about what his politics or anything outside of that, the man knows how to make a good freaking movie. Like, he knows how to make some grounded movies. It's hard to say anything really negative about this movie. Again, the only thing that I really would take back on this is that it's just a little bit, it's a bit of a generic storyline in the terms of, like, it's run by the numbers of everything rise, and then your third act conflict to get the protagonist separated and then come back together. But needless to say, I think it was a great representation of rugby. Loved the fact of New Zealand being the almost the overwhelming threat to the unification of South Africa in this time, and it was great. It's a great. I have a friend who got to play in that Rugby World Cup. This is the Rugby World Cup that also led to professionalism in rugby, which is a whole other story. But in this one, not that they talk about it in this, but in this one, it's a great story about development involving rugby. And there's not really much to go on it that if you haven't heard of it, ask any rugby person, they'll rave on it. And for me, it is an absolute must to watch. I think it is clearly a rugby cinematic classic, if you may. And there's not very many of those. I would say there's maybe like 3 that you can put up there. And we'll talk about those other 2 another time. But definitely a strong 8.5 out of 10 for me with this movie. I truly love it. Great casting, great representation. It's it is a little bit of a kumbaya at the end, because the reality of the situation is that's not really where it ended, and situations still exist to this day. But for what it's worth, it's a moment that everybody was able to come together, and it's great to be able to see that portrayed on film and portrayed against rugby. Again, fulfilling the community and the camaraderie component that we all preach and love so much. So definitely check it out. You can find it on HBO Max. And in some places, you can get it on Amazon Prime as well. But HBO Max, I believe, is the primary place where it's at now. So check it out.